Well, the Brody and Carmichael Dave collaboration, I would say it's way overdue, but I think it's perfect timing. What do you think?
Look, I'm trying to not take all our time up geeking out on your studio setup.
Yeah, the home broadcast studio is not a bad place to be. I'm going to be honest with you.
And I got to be honest, just so people know, Brody and I talked a little bit before we started this, and I said, hey, is everything okay? I want to compliment you on how you made this amazing attempt to make me feel better. You're like, oh no, that looks great in your shot. And I think the analogy I use is the guy pulling up in the Lamborghini that's like, wow, those dots and hubcaps are really sick, bro. Like, thank you for that, man.
I really like the color of paint on your wall. I really do. Like, that's a good tone. And it's Kings-ish purple. It's not full purple. There's some plum to it. You have a plum wall.
My wife gave me one room. I got to paint it purple-ish with the gray accents, and then they switched color schemes a little bit on me. But I'm working on it. I need a plant like you have over your right shoulder.
It's very fake, by the way.
Oh, it looks real to me, baby. That's awesome. It's you know what? Look, let's get it all out of the way. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I don't understand hockey that much, but your work on the Sharks, the passion that you have comes through, and I feel a kinship with you over what's going on with the A's. And we reached out to each other on social media, and honestly, it's great to meet you. And it's thank you so much for letting me on your big program.
The feelings are mutual, quite honestly, and actually. That's where I want to begin. I do eventually want to talk some straight up Kings basketball. I don't get to do that with a lot of people here on the channel. So at the end, I do want to navigate there. But since you mentioned it, let's begin here. The Kings and their planned, attempted move about 10 years ago, and I say that was the only one to Seattle, but it was Anaheim for a while, it was Virginia Beach for a while, even Las Vegas as a far-fetched option, but as you see what the Kings were trying to do and the Maloof brothers were trying to do and sell and move that franchise compared to where the A's are at, obviously there's no two identical situations, but do you see the two as being more similar or more different?
I think it's more similar. There's a lot of similarities, Brody, but here's the main differences I see right off the top. Rob Manfred is not David Stern.
Right.
And your mayor is not Kevin Johnson. And for us, the fans did so much. I will never discredit what they did because the team isn't here without the fans. But if we don't have Kevin Johnson, an ex-NBA player, and David Stern, who was so burnt off Seattle's move to Oklahoma City, it was one of the big tragedies to him of his tenure. He didn't want to see it happen again. If it wasn't for those two working things out and giving the time for the ownership to come through, Vivek Ranadive, Mark Mastrov, the whole group that they put together, that team, there would not have been the happy ending we got.
How do you describe your involvement? I mean, everything I've heard about you, and I do remember your name attached to the movement and the fan movement, and I just want to be real precise here so I know exactly what you were doing and how you were involved. How do you describe it to everybody?
Just a catch-all. The first thing I would say is I have gotten far too much credit, far too much, and this isn't false humility. It's a little uncomfortable. You're not doing it. It's just through the years, there will be a lot of, I'll come on to shows and I'll say, the guy who saved the Kings, listen, this could not have been a more team-oriented effort. I happen to have a radio show.
Yeah.
Which means I had a really loud megaphone behind me, but was also a lifelong diehard fan. So I might have been at time the loudest, but you had a group called Crown Downtown that was at every single city council meeting, 4 hours long, sitting through all the other crap that wasn't Kings related. I couldn't last 20 minutes there, and they were there each and every Tuesday. You had so many fan groups together, and I got fired from my job at the time. In part because of the work we did towards the Kings. And I think that kind of, for lack of a better term, martyred me a little bit. But the work that was done, I cannot stress enough. I was honest to God, a tiny piece in the cog, and really what was, I would say it was a movie. I mean, they made 2 documentaries out of it, one which ESPN had to shelf. You probably know that.
Yeah.
But it was really a cool thing. And now we're sitting here now with the Kings having broken a 16-year playoff drought last year.
Yep.
It couldn't have turned out much better.
And I think the biggest thing you probably were doing, though, in contributing was keeping people informed. Because whenever I put out a new piece of information, a lot of times I'll get tagged on social media. You're the Carmichael Dave of this A's situation. And so I have to kind of put that together and say, okay, that's what he was doing back then, just kind of keeping a lot of people in the loop.
Yeah, there was some strategic stuff. Much of what you do, some of your colleagues, I should say, I count on, two fingers, the people out there that are anywhere near as active as you are.
You can say Casey's name, friend of the channel. I've known him 15,
I don't know what the rules are.
15 years. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
No, we're good buddies. We talk all the time. In fact, I probably have a text on my phone from him. Oh, nope. But it was close. It was about 10 minutes ago. We talk all the time.
Casey was on with us last week. He's been fantastic. You've been fantastic, and there are a lot of similarities. You're trying to be somewhat of a journalist. I have a little bit of an advantage on the two of you, and I mean this because you're both actual journalists. You're both respected journalists. I've always kind of been the fanboy with the microphone, so I'll wear the jerseys, I'll do the thing. I don't try to do journalists with a capital J. You guys have integrity. You do your job. You follow the rules, if you will, to a point. But you can also tell your heart comes through your work. It's very transparent. So keeping the audience informed, having relationships with all the sides, whether it was the NBA, the mayor's office, the Maloofs themselves, and trying to cut through the crap, see what was real, what was not. And then also just providing a lot of political cover. We took an RV and went to about 22 cities on the relocation committee. That didn't save the team. What it did was, and I'll speak your language a little bit more. You're the TV guy. Local television had become so reliant on filling their A block with Kings things that in the quiet hours when they were making the laws and the sausages, and nobody likes that process, they had to fill something. So we would stunt, for lack of a better term, to give local media something to cover, and also to give politicians a little cover on their own to be able to vote at city council. So it was kind of a catch-all. We were learning as we went, and that's again where a lot of the similarities I think come in with what's going on in Oakland with the A's.
So the visit that some members of the A's, that small group representing the A's made to Sacramento, West Sacramento to be specific, last week. And I got to be very precise about that. The ballpark is in West Sacramento. Do you think the Sacramento side is either just entertaining this as a courtesy, or are they full in trying to get the A's to come there for these temporary years of maybe 3 or more?
When I speak of the Sacramento side, let me be specific. I'm talking about the Kings ownership group, as you said, Vivek Ranadive and those there who own what we'll still call Rayleigh Field.
Right. Let's do
it's
that.
It's like Arco Arena.
Right.
And then the mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg, who is not the mayor of West Sacramento, but still is obviously quite influential.
Sure.
The greater Sacramento economic group. Every big city has these groups. That's basically their job, and how they're graded is bringing investment, bringing infrastructure, bringing business to a city. So when you say the Sacramento side, that's who I'm speaking of, and they're 100% for it. And, and I know this because I've spoken to them. I've spoken to the King side. It makes all the sense in the world for them. Their property, which is Rivercat Stadium, everything surrounding it, it would stand to be a moneymaker. Same thing with the city itself. It would bring in the summertime a lot more traffic. Even though it's West Sacramento, it's kind of connected to the downtown corridor. So you're going to bring a lot of influx of business down there as well. I think they want it badly, no doubt about it.
Is this for the money of 3 years, or is this for the chance that, maybe the A's get stuck somehow in Sacramento if Vegas falls through? Or is just this a potential tryout to be a future expansion city of Major League Baseball? What do you think there, or is it all 3 of those? What is the intention there from the Sacramento side?
It's all 3. It's an influx of money.
Yeah.
It's also, who knows if they're, because we're not talking about, and I think it's important to be clear about this, Brody, is as you have, and as Casey has, and some of the people covering it, but not everyone. We're not talking about a 2025. We're more than certainly talking about 3 years.
At least 2028 is the earliest at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about a one and done. You're talking about establishing a presence and really putting Sacramento in the Major League Baseball lexicon. So for them, if the deal somehow falls through in Vegas, oh, wow, they don't have anywhere to go. Let's just stay. Almost if you will, it was obviously tragic circumstances, but Oklahoma City, New Orleans, Katrina, that
Right.
eventually got Oklahoma City a team. And that's one of their big selling points. We either keep them if the deal falls through or it's a tryout. I don't necessarily buy the latter two selling points, but it certainly would be an economic influx.
You know, I was thinking of what term to call it if the A's got trapped it's not really trapped or stuck in Sacramento. How about shipwrecked? Right? Like that's
because you got the Delta, it works.
That's where the ship ran aground, and then Las Vegas didn't work. You know, I've got to meet Vivek at least once, probably a couple different times, mostly for interviews. But you know, you feel like you get to know somebody at least in a quick conversation and a chat from a very basic level. I see him the same way a lot of people see him in a broad sense of somebody who jumped in and saved the Kings to Sacramento, right? So now he's a part of something potentially that would assist the A's in moving out of Oakland and maybe to Las Vegas or maybe somewhere else. But he's part of the extraction of the A's from Oakland if, in fact, this all goes down that way. How do you think he's viewing all of this, considering what he's known for and what is the opportunity at hand here?
It's very difficult to try to get in a brain that complex.
Sure.
I will do my best to, because we're obviously, we're philosophizing here. I think Vivek, in the best light, Brody, is proud of what he and his group did in Sacramento to save the Kings. I think it would be a chance for him to grow his business with the River Cats, in which they paid a record $90 million for that in the stadium.
That's right. A couple years ago, right?
A couple years ago, absolutely. Yeah. To work that into a baseball opportunity and then really have almost a monopoly on professional sports in a fast-growing market. And I think because of the economic boom, because of the business benefit, and because you can cloak that in trying to grow Sacramento, I think it's easier for him to compartmentalize perhaps some of the ethical issues some of us may have.
I mean, there's a lot to it. You know, this is an opportunity, to your point, for the business standpoint, for just the, I don't want to say resume standpoint, but it kind of builds what the Kings are doing in Sacramento. It builds in a lot of ways. It's just the way that it comes, the way the opportunity comes, has so much of a backstory, an interesting situation. How do Sacramentans feel about the product they would get with the A's for these 3 years, maybe longer? And I'm talking about the product on the field, the opportunity maybe to go to a Major League Baseball game in the 916 right around the corner from where so many live, but also the circumstances. I mentioned it from the Vivek and the ownership standpoint. How about from the Sacramento fan perspective? How do they see the A's as their guest?
So there's a lot to unpack there, Brody. I think right now, obviously I can't speak for all fans, but I'll speak for, I think, the general populace. I think there's a contingent, a large contingent, much like, I don't know if you've ever been young and seen a car you love at a dealership and you don't want to think about the payment and you don't want to think about the terms. You just know you love this car.
This is what you're going to do. Yeah.
You'll figure it out in time.
Right.
You just want it right now. I think there's a little bit of that. This is at a core a baseball town, Brody. Always has been, even with the Kings here. This has always been a huge baseball town, and there have been efforts to bring baseball here for a long time. We have a rich history of baseball players coming out of here. There's a ton of 916 in both the A's and the Giants fan base and the 209.
Yep.
And then you get to the ethical end, and that's where we kind of have a split. There are some that say, whatever works for Sacramento works for me. I'm ride or die for this city, and this is going to help us. I want to take my kids to games and not drive 2 hours. And then there's a group that says, I can't be a part of something that I so scorned 10, 12 years ago when the Kings were leaving. I can't do it. I get it.
Right.
But I just can't ethically be a part of that. And I think that's kind of where the opinions lie.
What do you think the team would be called? Like, if they're moved out of Oakland and they're staying 3 years in Sacramento, are they the Sacramento A's? Would they have to be for those couple years, or would they be the Sacramento A's of Las Vegas? I mean,
oh God, yeah.
I know we're 3 steps ahead here, but is it important that Sacramento's name would be on the front of those jerseys?
I think you could honestly, if you asked the Sacramentans that want it, you could call them the Genghis Khan A's.
They don't
and
care.
They wouldn't
Okay.
care.
All right.
I do think as a matter of form, though, because it did come out that Las Vegas wants to keep the Athletics name, which is disgusting in itself. I do think it would be the Sacramento Athletics. I think they'd keep the color scheme and everything, and just you'd have some collectible jerseys for a while.
Well, and I was going to say, if it were 3 weeks or 3 months, whatever, but 3 full seasons, I mean, I do think that is reason to have a certain name change, at least of the city that, you fly into, you go see games, the city you're temporarily calling home. How about from the Rivercats side of it? Now, I understand that the group that's wanting the A's to come in is the group that owns the minor league team and the ballpark. Can the Rivercats sustain a couple years if there's also major league talent and major league games sharing that ballpark? What do you think Rivercats attendance and business would be like for those years?
I'm not entirely sure that they would share the ballpark. I really am not sure. And I don't know what the other answer is. I don't know where they'd go or relocate.
Kick the Rivercats out?
I don't really, Brody. I don't know that you'd be able to share the ballpark. It's already not going to be a major league level ballpark. They're going to have to do some things to it. It's a 25, 30-year-old stadium.
Correct.
And I just don't see logistically. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, though. I don't see logistically how you're going to share a AAA schedule and a major league schedule. My guess would be that the Ronadive group would relocate the Rivercats somewhere, have them play. Again, it's 3 years. It's not 1 year. So they're going to have to find a semi-permanent solution. And then if the A's were then to move on to Las Vegas, welcome them back. And I imagine someone's getting a pile of cash for that whole transaction.
Yeah. And to your point, I think there's so much give and take and a lot of give to some take behind the scenes to make all these things work. And that's why they were having a meeting like that. It's literally not to say, oh, I've never been here before. What's this ballpark like? It's to talk about these details, which you and I are softly hammering out right now. 5 days ago, the owner of the Utah Jazz posted a picture on, I'm calling it Twitter still, of he golfing with Commissioner Rob Manfred. Right? So baseball, Utah, Salt Lake City, they are aggressive up there to try and get Major League Baseball. They've got Big League Utah. No, you know what? You were exactly spot on. This is the next thing I wanted to ask you about. So, I mean, I think you're already saying and seeing that Sacramento is entering into this conversation of competition. And that's why I asked earlier, how serious are they? Are they doing this out of courtesy? Like, hey, I'll take the phone call. We'll have the meeting and talk about it. But I really do think that Salt Lake City, more specifically Daybreak, Utah, next to South Jordan, apparently, I'm learning all this as I go.
Wow.
That development, like they are pushing really hard. And the Miller Group, the former owners of the Utah Jazz, they're the ones with all the money. They're the ones putting this development together. I'm honestly already starting to see that Utah is so serious and they are so proactive that even Las Vegas should have some second concerns about, what the A's and business and negotiations, like what is actually happening up there right now. So just to answer the question, you do see Sacramento as being very much in competition here, right?
I see Sacramento wanting to be in competition. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that it's actually a competition. You just spelled it out.
Yeah.
Ultimately, especially if they're going to lose that TV money by going out of market, and that's a moot point. You want to go to Salt Lake City and that corporate base? You've got the headquarters of the Mormon Church out there, a multi-billion-dollar company. It's a religion, but it's also a company that owns quite a few holdings, including the radio station that I work for. These are business people, serious business people with a ton of money, and they may have a bigger appetite for public involvement. Brody, there is no appetite for public involvement. And I'm talking about subsidies, monies. There's no appetite for that out here right now.
Sentimentally, when you go watch a Kings basketball game these days, or when you saw them in the playoffs last spring, and you're at the beautiful Golden One Center, and the beam goes up 10,000 feet in the sky, does some of you ever just maybe actually shed a tear and say, I remember when this wasn't going to be a thing anymore? Because quite honestly, me asking you that right now gives me goosebumps and all the feelings of maybe looking at the Coliseum in 2024 for the final time ever hosting the Oakland A's. I'm curious what that feels like on the other side of all of this for you nowadays.
I'll tell you, 11 years ago, my children were 4 and 5 years old. We went quickly. They didn't quite understand what was going on when daddy was doing all the stuff he was doing. I've cried more than I could possibly convey to you, buckets of tears, as of many people, throughout the whole process. I mean, imagine spending all this time and energy on trying to save a team owned by some billionaire guy, whether it's a Maloof, a Fisher, a Radadive, whoever. We're not them. Now, having the opportunity, Brody, to not just take my children, my almost grown children, to these games and see Slamps and the Lion and cheer and see the beam in person. But when I go there, what brings a tear to my eye is I see the kids now that are my kids' age 10, 12 years ago. And I know that sports are a generational construct, and to go generation to generation to generation, we're now seeing this new generation of Kings fans that almost had no idea we even had a basketball team. And before you know it, I'm going to be, I don't drink, but I'll be the figurative old guy at the end of the bar with one marble telling everybody about how the team almost left. And look at all this development downtown that we didn't have before, and this beautiful construct of basketball, Golden One Center, that stands on the shoulders of the blood, sweat, and tears of the fans that rallied together. Yeah, I can 100% see that. Not just see it in Oakland, Brody, but see it in a city that has been called a war zone, that has been compared to Detroit, that has lost the Warriors, that has lost the Raiders. You want to talk about a city getting body blowed left and right, it's Oakland. But I know this. Here's one thing Oakland and Sacramento have in common. They're blue collar. They're passionate. They're proud of where they come from. They won't take any crap from anyone. And if anyone can suck it up and win this battle, I still think Oakland's got a puncher's chance. I hope they do. I really do. And that's why I can't support the A's coming to Sacramento as much as it kills me. It's the first time in my life I've supported something that would be good for my city. There's no doubt this would be good for Sacramento on a pure logic standpoint, but I couldn't look guys like you in the eye if I'm taking your sports wife and she's leaving you for some dude down the street, and I'm going to let her sleep in my house for a few years. I can't do it.
You're an honest man. And yeah, usually divorces begin with separation, not, oh, I'm still going to stay with you for a while. If you don't mind, can I get a few minutes on the Kings?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm kind of a closet Kings junkie. I at the network, I know in the Bay Area here, we're not really allowed to watch all the broadcasts. There you go, the Kings hockey sweater.
Yeah, I got the hockey
sweater.
See,
the Sharks beat the Kings, the Los Angeles Kings. So I always have to make that distinction too. The good Kings versus the bad Kings.
Yes.
This Kings season has been interesting in a sense that there have been some losses, not a lot of losses, like not, an overwhelming amount. They're still kind of flirting with the playoff position, but the way they've lost some games in blowout fashion, in upset fashion, how do you describe the big theme of this season and maybe some of the slip-ups so far?
I mean, we have a segment that has become so, this is not a lie, that has become so regular on my show. We've coined the term Willody, which stands for a worst loss of the year. And we have the almost weekly Willody, which we joke, brought to you by whoever, your sponsor here. And it's whether it's Klay Thompson earlier in the year with the backbreaker with 0.4 left. Right. We just in the last couple of weeks, we're up 4. And I'm a wee guy, by the way. Right. I don't apologize.
I get it.
I'm a wee guy. I'm part of the team. We're all part of the team. We're in Milwaukee looking to upset the Bucks, up 4 in overtime, and our 90% free throw shooter Malik Monk at the line, he misses both.
I saw that.
We gave up a lead in Phoenix that hadn't been given up in that time frame in 1,245 games, Brody. So I would say the theme is more of an idea. You have a younger family than I do. My children, as I said, are 16 and 15. They're at the age now where they're still going to make mistakes, and it's my job as their father to correct them. But if they've made the same mistake for the 5th time, that's where I really get pissed off and frustrated. That's where we're at right now. These guys, it was one thing all the years when they sucked and they just lost to good teams. They know better than this.
Right.
Something ain't right, and you just got to hope they figure it out.
Do they know better than this because last year they did get over the hump? They did make it to the playoffs. They took the Warriors to 7 games. And really, what does that set up for this year? Like, the bar has been been set a lot higher. My question to you is, where is that bar? How high is that bar? Like, what would satisfy you at the end of this season to look back and say, okay, you know what? I'm content with that.
Last year was a 7-game series, a tremendous series with the Dynasty Warriors, and it took Steph dropping 50 on the road.
That's right.
And a 7th game for the rookie in the playoff Kings to be ousted. I just want to see progress. Of course, I'd love to see a title, and I'd love to see a Western Conference Finals. But if they make it to the second round this year, that's progress. The counter. I had a guy on Twitter last week. I didn't reckon it was just some guy tweeted me. It was Coach Mike Brown had there was a video put out of him saying, these are learning lessons. We're learning this, that, whatever. And I quote tweeted it and said, what are we learning? And a gentleman replied to me and said, you obviously, it's been a long time since you've seen a playoff dynasty built. These things happen. They're the hunted, not the hunter anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
And you learn these lessons in time. And for social media, Brody, we actually had a very good back and forth. Then I find out Tuesday. Yesterday. Sorry. Somebody says, hey man, that was a kind of an interesting back and forth last week. And what are you talking about?
Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, it turns out I didn't look at the name. It was Mike Brown's son, Elijah, that was tweeting me and schooling me on how to build a contender. And I'm so glad I didn't snap back at him or say something stupid, but he had a great point. It just happened to be Coach's son. And I hope he's right. Whether you need to make moves or not this year, I don't know with the trade deadline coming up, but something's got to change.
I look back at the turnaround, and I do see Mike Brown is probably a big reason, part of that. Obviously you got Fox and Sabonis, and you got the core group of players too, which I'm going to get into that in a second as well. But in terms of maybe adding to this group, the trade deadline right around the corner, and there's been some talk and maybe even speculation that Sacramento is not some real desirable situation for other players around the league to jump into, but I find that hard to believe. It's a young up-and-coming group, a coach they like, a coach that's well-respected. How do you see the attractiveness of Sacramento as being part of, gaining more traction in the future with better players?
Well, I think you look at, first off, the success the team had last year and the direction they're going, and then the little things. There's no secret that Sacramento basketball fans are some of the loudest and rowdiest in the NBA. We treat these players like gods. We don't have any other major league sports here. They get all the attention, all the love. We're incredibly forgiving as a fan base. Obviously, the weather comparatively is good out here, and we're close to things. Look, Sacramento is never going to be, as I always say, the grand prize and the price is right for the Showcase Showdown. You're not getting a 2-week vacation to Sac, but we're close to Lake Tahoe. We're close to San Francisco in the Bay Area. We're an hour from Los Angeles. We're 4 hours, 5 hours from Hawaii. This is a good place to live. You look at people like Brad Miller, Bobby Jackson, Vlade Divac, Doug Christie. There's so many ex-Kings that Peja Stojakovic that
they live
made
there.
Their home. They live here.
Yeah.
They've raised their families here. And there's a couple things that people don't ever realize about the Kings that I always have fun with. Number one, they're the oldest consecutive operating franchise in the NBA, celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. You'd think it'd be the Knicks or the Celtics or the Bulls. They were the Richmond Seagrams in 1924, and they're still running to this day. So that's number one. Number two, Brody, there's almost never been a free agent that was a Sacramento King that didn't re-sign with the team. We've had to force play. Chris Webber was literally crying on the plane. It's a famous story coming over from Washington when he got traded here, and we re-upped him and eventually traded him to Philly. Everyone we've tried to re-sign, they want to stay here.
Yep.
It's a great place to play. It's a great place to live.
All right, two more things. Fox and Sabonis, at the core of everything. And the Kings will need their best players to be the best players when it counts. How do you see their maturation and their chemistry together and their leadership as part of this group?
Well, last year, I think when it came to leadership, there was a lot of weight on Harrison Barnes' shoulder. Won a championship with the Warriors. If you've covered Harrison Barnes, I know you have.
Yep.
He is, if he was a religion, I'd go to church every Sunday. He is the most wonderful human being you
intellectual.
could ever meet.
I like the intellectual side. Yeah.
Call him the banker, because he just, he puts on those little glasses and you could see him giving you a home loan. The guy is, his IQ is off the charts, and he was such a mature, calming presence for this team last year. And now you see, DeMontis a little bit older than De'Aaron, but not much. But you see De'Aaron coming into his own. He's been struggling this month, but you see that real high level. He's in the conversation for best two-way point guard in the league. In the conversation, he's really stepped things up. And then Keegan Murray in his second year, Brody, after breaking the record for threes for a rookie last year, his job was kind of to stand in the corner and shoot. He's now taken more 2-point than 3-point shots this year. We're seeing a rise in defense where he's truly turning into a 3-and-D guard. And I think over the next few months, year to 2 years, you and I could be talking 2 years from now and looking back. And if the Kings have been ultimately and continuously successful, it's going to be on the shoulders of Keegan Murray's emergence as a true triple threat.
Well, from Keegan to Malik to Harrison Barnes to Herder, I mean, there is that supporting cast, and I think that's what makes this a playoff team. But the thing about it is to get to that next step, to satisfy, like what you're saying, a second-round appearance or even farther, does that core just need a little bit more development and time together, or do they need some reinforcements along the way? Like, what do you see ultimately leading this team to getting them to where you want to be?
Not only do we have the reigning coach of the year, but we have the reigning executive of the year, Monty McNair, who he and his staff, Wes Wilcox, who used to be the GM over at Atlanta, they're incredibly experienced, incredibly smart. Monty went to Princeton, but also played wide receiver. And I always joke with him, he kind of speaks nerd and jock. They've really turned this thing around. The question you just asked is the absolute most vital, most asked question we have. When I say he, Monty, has been known, like for example, the trade deadline last year, we all thought a move was coming. He made one move. It was for Kessler Edwards, a backup with the Nets nobody had heard of.
Right.
And the team was one of the best teams in the NBA for the last half of the season.
Right.
He has earned the trust. My instinct, they need an upgrade at the, they need to upgrade off of Barnes. Herder's been struggling this year. I know that's a spot. They need a defensive wing, somebody that can guard, whether it's a Matisse Thybulle, Ben Simmons, if he were healthy, would be the, and everywhere healthy would be somebody you talk about. Mikal Bridges, who costs an arm and a leg. But those are the types of players from minor to major impact I think they're looking for. But Brody, we could be sitting here at the end of the trade deadline, and honest to God, it's a coin flip whether or not they make a move or not. Yeah. I think they need to make one, but I trust Monty McNair.
It's kind of that tweener situation of, well, they're good enough and they've got the track record, and maybe like other good teams of past years, they can turn it on when they know they have to. We'll see how it goes. I'll be pulling for them. Obviously, I appreciate you entertaining my Kings conversation there for a while.
Anytime. I
jones for it.
I got 3 hours a day of Kings talk and then an hour of Niners talk because that's we cover them up here. We run the Niners on our station. They're on a good run right now. And anytime I get a chance to talk Kings with someone else, it's always a pleasure. Well,
maybe you'll be talking about the 100 loss A's in the near future.
And that's the other thing. I know we're wrapping up, but that's the other thing that I it's so hard to get across to my friends here. It's like, do you think the A's are going to come here and just John Fisher and company are going to be like, hey man, we got a new home and we really need to spend some. Are you kidding me? They're going to be worse than they are now. And if anything, Sacramento's going to get killed as a baseball city because when 12 people show up to see Aaron Judge and nobody cares about the A's in year 3 when the luster's worn off, that's the part nobody talks about. This team is going to be an embarrassment for 3 years and they're going to have Sacramento on the front of the jersey.
I think the cost of becoming a good team again is pretty documented, like where the A's are at payroll-wise from the last few years to what the league average and what the league median is. Like they're $100 million short every single season of just the league average. So if you do an extra $100 million every year times 10 years, there's $1 billion per decade, not in total player cost, but in additional player cost, like just to make yourself in that competitive situation again. So no, I don't know that it changes instantly overnight. The A's have been great in spurts, but those things don't sustain because you got to pay to play, right? You got to pay to keep that group intact. So yeah, I don't know what Sacramento or Salt Lake City or Summerlin or wherever, I don't know what they're going to get 2025 and beyond.
I want to say this because I want to do my end of the wrap up. I just want everybody.
How about this? You wrap it up for me.
I'm going to wrap it up and then you take us out. I just want everybody watching this video. If you saw the movie, I think it was a late 80s movie called Twins, and it was starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Yeah. This is kind of a version of that. And I want you to pay attention to the screen here. And I assume Brody's probably got it split somehow after he edits everything up. Okay.
Now, there we go. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you see, and I'm assuming, Brody, you're on the left here. Look at Brody. Look at his smile with his perfect teeth, his piercing eyes, his hair. He's got the collared shirt. He's got the super for real plant above his right shoulder, your left on the TV dial. He's got the board. And I mean, look at how beautiful that is. Then you have me with this misshapen long head. My hair is uneven. I'm wearing a freaking English League sports jersey. And if you pan to the left, look, there's old bowls of cereal my wife left after she ate breakfast this morning and went to work. This is the video version of Twins. You have Bay Area professional media and you have a ding dong like me. So thank you, Brody, for letting me come in and soil up your channel.
My pleasure, and it'll be my new show where I come. It's like for the HGTV network. I come spruce up somebody's home studio. Like I'm a property brother, but a broadcast property brother.
Yes, you could be, instead of yard crashers, it could be studio
crashers. I like
brother. I'm here with you. Let's get it sold.
This is like I said, way overdue. What a pleasure, and we'll do it again sometime soon as things develop. Maybe we'll be up in Sacramento a bunch in the near future. We'll see. But Carmichael, Dave, I appreciate this.
Absolutely. Anytime. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Like I said, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. You do great work. And anytime you want to have a conversation, it's my honor, brother.